There's been a flurry of activity since Monday at the Attorney General's office preparing for today's appeal. Graddock's office filed both general and specific objections to the release of the inmates and included rap sheets on each inmate giving the court information about their criminal backgrounds. Judge Varner's removed 17 names from the list, with more deletions likely. The changes were made after prison officials learned that the 17 were either out of prison already or were ineligible because of pending sentences or other crimes. It's not known how quickly Varner will rule on Graddock's motion to set aside the release order. The Attorney General says he'll give Judge Varner 24 to 36 hours for his ruling, and then he's prepared to take other steps to halt the release.
I've got a state trooper sitting in his automobile. Right now, we've already prepared all the necessary documents and papers and necessary legal motions to be filed in the 11th Circuit, along with all of the affidavits that we needed. And if the judge does not rule, then we're going to go ahead and send that trooper with our assistant AG to the 11th Circuit and ask for an emergency hearing, and we'll get an emergency court panel.
So far, Judge Varner is yet to set a date to meet with officials from the Attorney General's office on the appeal. Mac Carmack, WSFA TV News.
We are going to insist that the hearings are held in open court so the public can come in, so the media can come. No question. He cannot release people by way of paroling people in our state. I mean, he's a federal judge. At least some people think so.
About it too. That's what you call moving the camera slow.
When Governor James returned from his Japanese-Korean industry-seeking tour last night, he said he wasn't sure what specific action he'd take about the prison inmate release order, but he said he knew he would oppose it. James indicated, however, he didn't want to grandstand the issue.
We're not interested in seeing a political football made out of this thing, or rhetoric that has no meaning. If we go to court, and we plan to go to court, then we will go to court because we think we're on solid ground and because we think we can win.
The governor is expected in his motion to ask Judge Varner for an immediate hearing. Governor James spent the morning at the governor's mansion meeting with legal advisor Jimmy Samford, going over the alternatives. Samford later took that motion by the federal courthouse. The governor's press secretary, Wendy Lovell, says the governor is prepared to take the issue on to the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals should the motion to Varner fall through. Attorney General Troy Graddick, who's been reacting to the issue since Tuesday, also has a similar motion filed with Judge Varner and says his office is also prepared to file with the 11th Appellate Court in Atlanta. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
And you will see the results of it in 1982. It was not accomplished in this trip at all, necessarily. It had been worked up and worked on for the last 18 months. And this trip was a conclusive trip to talk firm arrangements and do the necessary work with the various agencies of the Korean and Japanese governments.
Lights for indoors or out should never be used unless they have been tested for safety. You can identify these by the UL label, usually on the light package. The UL means the lights were tested by the underwriters' laboratories. Make sure to check for broken or cracked sockets, frayed or bared wires, and loose connections.
Lights on the Christmas tree, we, of course, really recommend that people use the pin lights, the smaller ones. The reason for this is, of course, they give off less heat than, the pin lights will give off less heat than the larger lights. The more heat that a tree is exposed to, the quicker it's going to dry out. The drier it gets, the more of a fire hazard it's going to be.
Never use lighted candles on a tree or near other evergreens. Always use non-flammable holders. And for other trimmings, use non-combustible or flame-retardant materials. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
The agents can probably tell you that. J.D., was there anybody?
Since this appears to be organized crime, which I'm assuming is what we're talking about, do we have any more?
Well, the ranch was purchased in January of 1980. The operation or the surveillance of this operation has been going on since about 1978, this particular group. This group is headed up by one Gilberto Rodriguez. Also included in the organization was a Jaime Carvajal. He's alleged to have been murdered in Miami and his body dismembered. The ranch is located near Hope Hull, Alabama. It was seized pursuant to a complaint for forfeiture filed in the United States District Court. The property, which is known as the Bar J Ranch and is owned by one Jaime Munera.
More than 300 inmates will be let out on the streets at once with no jobs, no money, and in some cases, no place to go. Montgomery Deputy Police Chief Major L.A. Pierce says the crime situation in the state of Alabama is already bad, and he predicts that by letting these former inmates out, the picture will be even worse.
Our officers have worked hard down here to catch these people and put them where they belong, we think. And it adds more work to us. And but I think the biggest thing would be it puts more fear into the citizens.
Pierce says now that criminals know if they're sentenced, they'll likely only serve a few months to a year. They'll take more chances.
The way the economy is, there's no jobs. These people are going to live somewhere or another. And whether it takes stealing or whatever, they're going to live.
And what about jobs for these inmates with unemployment on the rise, especially during this Christmas season? Well, State Industrial Relations Director Franklin James says there are no jobs to be had. Major Pierce says most of the inmates on the list weren't working before they went to prison. He says most were living on handouts, and he predicts that most will probably go back to doing about the same thing they did before they went to jail. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
ABI agents say this man almost bilked a Wetumpka timber firm out of $670,000 using forged documents and the ID of a dead man. ABI Sergeant John Cloud is trying to unravel the mystery of the true identity of the person who told everybody he was John Kenneth Ferguson. He neglected to inform them that Ferguson died at Maxwell Air Force Hospital a year ago. Cloud explains the scheme.
On September the 25th of this year, he went to the Bureau of Vital Statistics and obtained a birth certificate of a man who died in 1980. On September the 28th, he renewed the driver's license of that man, John Kenneth Ferguson. On September the 30th, he leased an office at the 1 East building here in Montgomery under the name of Ken Ferguson Land Investments. On the 5th of October, he rented a telephone. On the 21st of October, he contacted a local timber company and offered to sell this land to them. On the 30th of November, the closing for this land was to be held in a Birmingham attorney's office. Just prior to this closing, purely by accident, the timber company learned that the owner of this land had not sold this land and did not know John Kenneth Ferguson.
The day of the closing for the land sale, all of the man's papers were in order. They were also forged. But a final check by the timber firm's attorneys revealed that the man who claimed to be Ferguson did not own the 725 acres of land in Wilcox County. All this occurred in the lawyer's office where the check for the $670,000 was ready to be handed to him. Authorities say he had already made arrangements to cash the check within minutes of the closing. The man reportedly paid his attorney and left the stunned gathering sitting in the Birmingham office.
One of the investigators in this case said when everybody in that room at the closing in Birmingham finally discovered that they were almost defrauded, they really didn't know what to do. And so it was almost 3 days later before they reported it to authorities. By that time, the mysterious Mr. Ferguson or Mrs. Smith had disappeared. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Getting out of the hospital.
Happened in the newsroom about 3 years ago was getting a Christmas card from...
I really didn't know that much about the kind of work they did. I'm sure I'll learn more after we...
It's just wonderful that he got out of it alive when it all took place. And I just can't stop thanking the Lord for him surviving the whole operation.
The Bar J Ranch is a 622-acre spread south of Montgomery in the Pentlala community. It was seized under Title 21 of the U.S. Code because, according to U.S. Attorney John Bell, the ranch was allegedly purchased with money generated from a multi-million-dollar Colombian cocaine trafficking organization. Jaime Munera, owner of the Bar J, is allegedly a member of an organization headed by a Colombian national, which authorities say intended to utilize the ranch to fly in shipments of cocaine. According to Bell, the ranch was never utilized, apparently because several key members of the organization were arrested in South America and elsewhere during the past year. At a news conference today, U.S. Attorney Bell and State Public Safety Director Colonel Jerry Shoemaker said the value of all property seized from Munera, including a Piper Cherokee airplane and proceeds at 2 local bank accounts, would be in excess of $1 million. Approximately 40 members of the drug organization have been arrested in various parts of the country. $2 million in currency seized and approximately 430 pounds of pure cocaine valued in excess of $50 million has been confiscated in New York and Miami. No charges have been filed against Jaime Munera at this time. Mac Carmack, WSFA TV News.
Fans attending the 44th Annual Blue-Gray All-Star Football Classic Christmas Day at Crampton Bowl will recognize some of the players making up the list of linebackers and defensive backs for the Gray squad. Perhaps the most recognizable name is All-Southeastern Conference linebacker Danny Skutak of Auburn. Unfortunately, Danny will not be able to play. He injured an ankle against Alabama and is still sidelined. But replacing Skutak on the Gray roster will be Kenneth Woodward of Tuskegee Institute. Woodward at 6'1", 220 pounds, runs the 40-yard dash in 4.6 seconds, considered extremely fast for a big man. This speed, along with his incredible strength, make him a prime pro prospect. Joining the Gray secondary will be a familiar name to Alabama State fans, Ricky Smith. In his 4 years of roaming the Hornets secondary, Smith has built quite a reputation. He is blessed with 4.4 speed in the 40, and pro scouts say he has tremendous ability. Joining up with Woodward at linebacker for the Grays is All-ACC performer Stuart Anderson of Virginia and Scott Nicholas of Miami. Both led their teams in tackling last season. Heading the Gray secondary is two-time All-ACC honoree Dennis Tabert of Duke. He has a total of 11 career interceptions. The Blues will also be led by an impressive set of defensive stars. Heading the linebacking corps is Jim Fanhorst of Minnesota. The All-Big Ten selection is considered by many one of the top pro linebacker prospects. In the Blue secondary will be a pair of all Big 8 defensive backs, Pete DeSalamenti of Oklahoma State and Steve Crapel of Missouri. Both of these headhunters are also high on the pro list. Kickoff for the Blue-Gray Classic Christmas Day is set for 11:30 at Crampton Bowl. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
The Montgomery County school system currently offers 30 vocational courses. The proposed magnet school will offer 15 additional technical courses in a school that will be open to all Montgomery students. Over the past year, local school officials conducted several feasibility studies, visited other magnet schools in cities like Mobile and Dallas, and talked to area businessmen to find out if a magnet school is needed and how it should be constructed. From all indications, there's a definite need for such a school in Montgomery. The school system has purchased 63 acres of the old Allenport property off Narrow Lane Road, and the Montgomery architectural firm of Chambliss and Killingsworth has drawn designs. Based on a projected 1982 economy, the school will cost $16 million, but Montgomery County School Superintendent Henry Adair says right now the school is strictly on paper. He says at some point the school board will secure interest to underwrite it, but he says now is not the time. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
When Governor James returned from his industry tour to the Far East last night, he said he hadn't been entirely briefed on the situation. The governor spent this morning at a secluded office at the governor's mansion meeting with his legal advisor, Jimmy Samford. By 10 o'clock, Governor James had decided to file the motion asking Judge Varner to change his mind. Samford delivered that motion to the federal courthouse before noon, and a hearing later was set for tomorrow morning. The governor's press secretary, Wendy Lovell, says the governor is reacting differently to this inmate release than to the first release by Judge Varner in July.
These names, however, there are some problems with the crimes that these people committed, and more violent crimes. They were serving longer terms, and he simply doesn't think it's in the best interest to release them.
Attorney General Charles Graddick, who's filed separate motions with Judge Varner, will be at tomorrow morning's hearing, even though he has filed a motion today with the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta, a move Governor James reportedly won't consider until after his hearing with Judge Varner tomorrow. Graddick reportedly feels that since the inmate release is scheduled for next Tuesday, he has no time to waste in getting the appeal process in motion. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Agents can probably tell you that. Seizures have amounted to about $50 million, involving about 400.
Since this appears to be organized.
Well, I suppose we are look at it with some guarded optimism that we do have a farm bill. It's not everything that we wanted. It's there's a lot of give and take, but recognizing that the government is trying to cut the cost to government, I guess we farmers had to accept our part of those cuts. And this is the way we see the bill. It's not entirely what we would like to have had, but we were pleased that our congressional delegation did vote for the bill in its entirety.
And then transferring within the county systems. And then the 500 additional transferred within the county system.
Before you buy a toy for a child on your Christmas list, stop and think. Choose only toys appropriate for the child's age and development. Many toys now have age group labels on the package. Also, look for warning labels on toys, such as not intended for children under 3 years of age. Some toys, like chemistry sets or electrically operated toys, are for older children. Check fabrics for non-flammable, flame-retardant, or flame-resistant labels. Don't buy toys such as shooting games or darts unless they'll be played under adult supervision. The Americans for Democratic Action has volunteered some answers if you're wondering what might be a good gift to buy. The ADA's Toy Safety and Quality Report gives high marks to the video game Asteroids and a race car set and a pyramid-shaped puzzle that's a little easier than the Rubik's Cube. The ADA also has some no-buys on its list, and they include toy guns made by Edison and a USA and ABC Wide World of Sports dart set. The important thing to remember is that your children should be taught the proper way to use the toys, and children should always be supervised by their parents. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
I would like to call your attention to the congratulations, Bubba. At this time, before we leave, Mr. Gregory has a few words he'd like to say.
That they were here today. We're delighted to have some of our guests. First Vice President of the Alabama Cattlemen's Association, and he is from Mobile and Leroy, Alabama.
This is the monthly Board of Directors meeting for the Montgomery Area Family Violence Program. These days, a major topic is money. Federal money that will run out at the end of next month, and the money that is needed to keep the program alive. Karen Sellers, Executive Director of the Domestic Abuse Center, has an idea for a canned food drive, so her group can supply food for spouse abuse victims that are too proud for welfare, but are trying to make it on their own. But what happens when the money runs out for the center that is over capacity and had 4 new victims today?
I don't know. Perhaps volunteers. I really don't know. I'm going to try and find some money, federal money, foundation money, but I just don't know how successful I'm going to be.
The Sunshine Center, which serves as a counseling organization for child abuse and child neglect, is having to move from Johnson Street to another location because the rent is cheaper. As the workers box up for Monday's move, they hope they won't have to pack up for good in a few months. One board member summed up the financial situation this way: spouse and child abuse is a community problem. It looks like it will be up to the community to save the programs. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
The concession stand will be open as long as he has some business.
This thing is it working out? A lot of you have been in touch with us, thanks for the Watts line, and I've gained some beautiful pen pals.
Although Governor James and Attorney General Charles Braddock were both asking for a stay of the order, they used basically different arguments. Braddock's office asserted Judge Varner had overstepped his authority by ordering early consideration of inmates by the Pardon and Parole Board. Judge Varner denied that charge. Judge Varner said his ruling only allowed early consideration. Attorneys for Governor James, however, used the argument that the state had virtually complied with every reform requirement except space. The problem, they say, is being addressed by building new prisons in St. Clair and Jefferson counties. But Judge Varner called that a solution that wouldn't help the immediate problem, which is about 1,400 state prisoners still housed in county jails. Because Varner said the state failed to comply with the September 1st, 1981 order to have all inmates out of county jails, he felt the court had been as patient as could be expected. Braddock filed a motion yesterday with the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta appealing the ruling that he says he anticipated.
We're ahead of the game now as far as the appellate procedure is concerned, because the 3 judges on the emergency panel in the 11th Circuit, they have all the material they need.
Attorneys for Governor James have filed a motion in the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta asking to join Braddock's motion for an appeal. But word from Atlanta through the attorneys here in Montgomery is that the emergency 3-judge panel won't consider this question until Monday, the day before the inmates are scheduled to be released. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Well, I think I can take all the credit for him. No, I'm just kidding. Then I don't take any credit for him, but I'll tell you one thing. He's doing a great job up there, and if he doesn't get the Coach of the Year this year, he'll be done a grave injustice.
I think you'll agree. What do you think their chances are down there in the Orange Bowl?
Their chances? You don't read the Kickoff?
No, sir.
That football publication I sell? Well, I'll tell you right now, buddy, they got them 1-point winner, and I expect them to win by 1. But I'll tell you another little thing. It's very few teams in the United States that get to play in the Sugar Bowl or the Cotton Bowl or the Rose Bowl or the Orange Bowl. When you get in one of those 4 games, you've done a pretty good job already.
You're right.
And whether we win or whether we lose, the sun will come up and old Ford will be Danny Ford the next day, and I'll still love him.
And Death Valley will still be up there?
And Death Valley will be there, and that Howard's Rock will still be there, and we'll probably be back next year bigger and better than ever, just like Ringling Brothers Circus.
Hi.
Attention, please. Sorry, sold out. Thank you for using the talking vendor. Come again. Don't forget your change.
Hey, how you doing? Oh, I know, Frank. I've seen you before. How you doing? Steve Sloan. That's just
Everybody'd rather do that. So tomorrow, as soon as we get back to practice, I'll give you the room number. We'll just go in there. The press people will be all out there tomorrow. Will come, and we'll give them an hour for interviews, questions, whatever, on an informal. That's a good dinner. Yeah, it's a unique place. There's business leaders in Montgomery, but we'll ask you to give us an hour and a half.
Oh, some place said 2:30.
No, 11:30. 11:30. What?
Formula that is used here, those institutions that requested less than $1 million. Expect that delivered next week.
Yes.
Cliff Hagan, the athletic director at the University of Kentucky, called me and asked me to come up and discuss with them their situation there. And being a graduate and a former player there, I really felt it was important to go back and discuss it with them. But the situation in Miami is really a great situation. It's very, very difficult to leave that type of situation. We've developed a program, and I think we got a chance to keep it going.
You certainly have developed a program. Now, did the probation figure into your decision anyway?
Well, the probation, the actual ruling, and the sanctions that the NCAA levied have really given us now an ability to move forward, because for 2 years we've been under a quasi probation, meaning that everybody is suspecting what is going to happen, and as a result everybody is concerned. Now the sanctions have been laid, and we know where we are, and we can move ahead. So it really is like taking the shackles off of a horse and letting him run at full head again.
The construction project will be located on 2,000 acres of desert near the city of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, which has a population of 1.3 million. The original plan was to build an equestrian center, a sporting mart, a gigantic shopping center, and a horse racing track. However, wealthy Saudi developer Walid Shabartli today announced plans for the additional construction of a Disney World amusement center with a total cost of $750 million. Shabartli met for about an hour with Blunt Construction Company officials. A decision as to whether or not Blunt will receive the contract on the project is expected within a few days. An Ozark architectural firm has been selected to design the multi-million-dollar project. Jack Mizell, head of the firm, was among those at today's meeting. Construction of the project is expected to begin in about 4 months. The main reason for the project, according to Shabartli, is for the attraction of Arabian horse owners. He says he hopes the equestrian center will draw competition from all over the world. The entire project is expected to take about 4 years to complete. Dan Black, WSFA TV News.
One of the main things is following the vehicle in front of you too closely. Leave enough space between your car and the one in front of you. That'll help out, and pay attention to what you're doing. Don't be talking to your passenger or looking around, watch the cars around you, and use courtesy with the other drivers also. Don't try to cut people off that seem like they're going to pull out in front of you. When people make mistakes, try to help them to keep out of an accident also by doing that.
When the leaders of a dozen state universities, the director of the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, the state superintendent of education, and the governor's representatives met Wednesday in Montgomery to discuss the governor's plan, it appeared that unanimous approval of the plan, even in a revised form, was unlikely. The university head said its requests were too specific, and they didn't think they could thoroughly study the plan in the 1 week they were given before a final draft of the plan would be prepared. But now they're trying to do just that, looking over the governor's ideas for ending segregation, making suggestions on how to improve the plan. However, Samford says those suggestions are limited.
He is not going to generalize the plan any further. He wants the plan as specific as it is, if not more specific. And we have every reason to believe that the Department of Education is not going to accept any more general areas within the plan.
Samford says since it was the governor's office that was first contacted by the U.S. Department of Education back in January and advised of the need to desegregate, the governor will submit a plan by the December 31st deadline, with or without the approval of all the universities involved. But Samford says he doesn't expect the Department of Education to accept the governor's plan as a state plan unless it is endorsed by all the universities. That means the federal government may very well step in and devise its own plan for the state schools.
This is something we don't want to see. We feel like the state of Alabama can handle its own affairs without the federal agencies coming in. And this is the effort that we are trying to put forth right now. The end that we're trying to see is that the state of Alabama develops its own plan for higher education in Alabama.
Samford says by Wednesday a final draft of the desegregation plan should be complete. Then after the Christmas holidays, he and other governor's staffers will begin actively seeking the signatures that may mean the approval or rejection of the plan when it gets to the feds. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
That is what is called for in the criteria.
Well, I had some bets that he wasn't going to run for governor, and I had a friend of mine bet me $100 he wouldn't run, and when I told him he would, and I put that sign on my car, and I know George Wallace go run. Never spoke to him, but you know the politician George Wallace says he's going to run for governor. He's had 16 years that mansion, and he wants 8 more of it.
When the leaders of a dozen state universities, the director of the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, the state superintendent of education, and the governor's representatives met Wednesday in Montgomery to discuss the governor's plan, it appeared that unanimous approval of the plan, even in a revised form, was unlikely. The university head said its requests were too specific, and they didn't think they could thoroughly study the plan in the 1 week they were given before a final draft of the plan would be prepared. But now they're trying to do just that, looking over the governor's ideas for ending segregation, making suggestions on how to improve the plan. However, Samford says those suggestions are limited.
He is not going to generalize the plan any further. He wants the plan as specific as it is, if not more specific. And we have every reason to believe that the Department of Education is not going to accept any more general areas within the plan.
Samford says since it was the governor's office that was first contacted by the U.S. Department of Education back in January and advised of the need to desegregate, the governor will submit a plan by the December 31st deadline, with or without the approval of all the universities involved.
The end that we're trying to see is that the state of Alabama develops its own plan for higher education in Alabama.
Samford says by Wednesday a final draft of the desegregation plan should be complete. Then after the Christmas holidays, he and other governor's staffers will begin actively seeking the signatures that may mean the approval or rejection of the plan when it gets to the feds. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
All right, defense up. Huddle up.
Ricky, last year this time, Curtis Green was an unknown quantity in the pros. He shifted positions for the game, and suddenly he made himself a career. Now he was, what, on the all-rookie team?
Right, he was on.
Is that on your mind as you approach this game?
Yes, because a lot of them feel that I'm in the same shoes as he is in now, so.
You have an opportunity, huh?
Yes, I think I have, as a matter of fact, I have a better opportunity than he has, I guess, because defensive backs with speed are pretty rare in the pros right now.
What are you running the 40 again?
Oh, I've been clocked at a 442.
Oh my, that's fast. This is really a good opportunity for you, isn't it? You're kind of a late entry in here, but you get a chance to show what you can do, can you?
Yes, I am a late entry, and it's a great opportunity. Tuskegee is celebrating their 100th centennial anniversary, and it's a great opportunity for me to play in the game.
If you could have it your way in the game, what would you like to do Friday, huh?
Make it a very experienced thing for the young kids that's there, and very beneficial that all the people in the surrounding area come out and they'd be able to help the community to the supreme effort.
Think you're going to sell a few tickets in Tuskegee? Hope some of your friends come up?
Yes, sir. I was telling everybody I seen, I was telling them about the game.
How about being on national television? It making a difference?
No, I don't think it'll make too much difference, but it'd be great.
For a living, you can't even see, huh? Good pattern.
As they have all season, the Tide got off to a slow start. Eddie Phillips kept the Tide in at the first half. There, 2 of his 18 points on the game. But Mike Edelman of Penn State kept the Nittany Lions close. He kept bombing them from outside for 20 points on the night. Philip Lockett took charge late in the first half, controlling the backboards. Here he gets a rebound off a missed shot and puts in 2 of his 11 points on the game. In the second half, the Tide started taking control, mainly because of number 33, Cliff Wyndham. Here, a rebound and a nice hook shot for 2 points. Again, it is Wyndham, this time on a nice pass from freshman Enos Watley. 2 of his 20 points to lead the Tide. Coach Wimp Sanderson says Bama wasn't doing anything different when they took control.
Well, not anything really, just trying to get after a little bit better defensively and trying to hit the offensive and defensive boards a little bit better.
How do you feel about the team's performance? You just kind of blew them away there at the end.
A little better the second half. I was pleased.
Alabama took its biggest lead when Terry Williams slammed that one home. It was 88-68 after he added the free throw. The Tide was 17 of 20 from the free throw line in the second half. That's where Bobby Lee Hurd got most of his points for the Tide, but he got 2 of his 13 on that rebound and stuff. The Tide now 6-0 on the year. They play Biscayne Monday night.
There was music and singing behind these prison walls today.